Welcome back to Politics HQ and News Central Television. The Nigerian Labour Congress has rejected the more than 500 billion naira palliative offer from the Nigerian government and has demanded an increase in minimum wage for workers. The Nigerian government proposed to pay 8,000 naira, an equivalent of $10 per month, to 12 million families in the country after the recent introduction of taxes and the removal of fuel subsidy. The coming days will reveal more on what is potentially possible as relief for the Nigerian government, and with the Labour holding for a more wholesome and inclusive package. What is next is left to be seen. Now, joining me tonight on this important conversation, I have Olusiji Aina, a development economist who joins us from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And I also have Adeola Ogunbodede, an economist who joins in from Lagos. So warm welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me on the program.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to start with Olusiji.
Good evening, and thanks for having me.
A warm welcome to you. I'd like to start with Olusiji. The federal government has said they're proposing a 500 billion naira subsidy palliative and to pay Nigeria, the most vulnerable Nigerians, 8,000 naira a month. What do you make of this proposed subsidy palliative, and do you think it adequately addresses the hardships faced by Nigerians?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me. Very important question. I personally see it as a welcome development. It might not necessarily address all of the issues and challenges we have at the moment, but one critical thing it can do, if government decided to do all of the maths together and then put up a very structured and very clear-cut processes on how that money will be administered, looking at all of the layers of the people that are involved within the populace. So, for example, the Nigerian Labour Congress, the trade union, comprises of those who are working and perhaps those who have one or two businesses to do. Then you have to also look at some segments of the society, like students, look at some other people that does not fall under the NLC. So the government must be able to do that mathematics very clearly in a way that can soften the hardship that the people are going through. And I'll tell you this because it's not a new thing. In 2018, the United States was trying, and that for about 4 to 5 buses, electric buses per state. They only excluded about 9 states out of the 52 states in the United States, and about 41 states benefited from that. So if we are looking at solving all of this problem, we must be able to address, the entire problem that we see in a way that is segmented. So, for example, for the Nigerian Labour Congress, or for those category of people that are working, I expect that to look at the payee, the tax on payee, and be able to incentivize them by maybe about 50%. And then they can get something back every month from whatever they are taking, they are charging them. That's one segment. The other segment is the public sector. If we decide to look at such electric buses that cost between $750,000 to about $900,000, we can also be able to provide maybe 15 to 20 buses per state. That will not take more than 200 billion from the money that was projected, including the installation and all of those processes. That will also cater for some segment of the society. And then we have to look at the students. For those who are in school, especially for those who are in primary, secondary school, private and public sector, we need to also be able to engage with all of those registered private schools and see how they can create some palliatives where the school fees that parents are paying is also being cut down maybe by 30 or 40%. They also can have something back, from the home. And then we look at the university student, the polytechnic student, and the tertiary institutions, and also look at the school fees they pay and cut it down maybe by 30%.
You've come up with this brilliant ideas that is holistic and covers the entire gamut of society. Do you think the government has more, or this is just this 500 billion conditional cash transfer and then they go to sleep?
From the understanding of what we have, I think it was the $800 million that was approved by World Bank just before the end of the last administration. And that was where this appropriation, was actually drawn out from the 500 billion. I also believe they should have more. If we talk about stopping subsidy, and by estimate, we're talking about spending about 2 to 3 trillion naira, on subsidy annually. we should also be able to do more. Perhaps this is just a starting point to be able to address, the initial teething problems, and to be able to reassure Nigerians that, the interest of Nigerians matters to this administration. And that is very key if we have to be able to trust this government at that point. But there should be more at some point as we make progress before the end of the year. Maybe additional 1 trillion should be asked for to be able to deploy more electric buses across the country, and to be able to, take that on the long term so that people can feel the reduction in the effect of the impact of that subsidy removal.
Thank you very much, Olusiji. I'd like to bring Adeola Ogunbodede into the conversation. Now, Adeola, the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress are demanding a significant 300% salary increase in response to the fuel subsidy. You and I know that it's just a small percentage of Nigerians that are employed in government services. What specific challenges are workers and Nigerians in general facing in the country? And do you think this demand for such a substantial pay raise of 300% by the NLC and TUC is justified?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone on this platform at this time for this opportunity. But I just want to let us understand something. This government came in, and on May 29, subsidy was removed without plan, without prior information. And indeed, it actually got many people, we were not prepared actually for that subsidy on the day it was removed. From all indication, it was supposed to be removed by the end of June. So there are some level of planning that the government and even the people will have made prior to that time. But because our president on the day of inauguration decided to make that announcement, a whole lot of things were challenged. Things tilted, plans were altered, and a whole lot of things actually needed to happen. I could also see within that period that so many workers who might have planned that, okay, from the salary I have received in the month of May, these are the ways I will spend the money. Maybe some of them might have even spent some substantial part of their money. But later on May 29, that thing changed. So some of them had to trek, some of them has to be excused from work, and a whole lot of, even some of us actually, because I'm part of them, we had to make another adjustment to our feeding plan, because what we plan to expend on food had changed because of those plans. So eventually, when you try to look at what has been happening since the beginning of the year, a whole lot of what you call income on January 1, by the time you look at it now, it has actually been eroded in a whole lot of ways through government and monetary and fiscal policies. So as a result of that, workers are at a tilt, at what I call at the end of the precipice, about to fall down the precipice, because they are being challenged daily. And I could think, because when you look at all that has happened, so when the NLC was arguing for 300% increment, I was not taken aback, because I understood they've had to go through a lot. 5,000 naira that is minimum.
So you think it's justified?
Sir?
The 300% demand by NLC, is it justified?
Yes, it is justified. It's justified because I work with the private sector. I understand what it is. But compared to what the public sector earn, it is justified. But when you look at it also in the, what we call it, in action, we will actually see that it may not be achievable. But I think they have something to actually justify that position they're actually pushing forward. And we could all say, including me, including everybody who has been in the other private or public sector, we've been suffering this challenge. So the issue of having to, the federal government, I mean, saying, I want to give 500 billion naira now. I want to say, when I saw 500 billion, I was actually taken aback. I actually thought, okay, maybe they have been thinking of, when NSC wanted to go on strike the last time, they said they're going to give them some palliative, they're going to give them some level of support. But I thought that was what it was for. Later on, I got to know that it is 8,000 naira for 12 million household. And then I calculated it's 576 billion in 6 months to household. So that money is not meant for them. So I could say that the need of the public sector have not been met. So government still need to come back and address that part. 500 billion that is just approved now is not for the public sector. And it's not even for the people.
Thank you very much, Adeola. I would like to bring Olusiji into the conversation. Now, Olusiji, I would like us to pick up from where Adeola stopped. He said this 50 billion, this 12 million for this 8,000 conditional cash transfer program, which aims to support 12 million poor and low-income households, is insufficient. In your opinion, what's your evaluation of the potential benefits and drawbacks of this proposed conditional transfer program? Because most people feel, you know, you should lay down the groundworks, or you create an enabling environment to stimulate the economy, and you teach a man to fish rather than hand him fish. What do you make of this?
I totally agree with that in that sense. Again, I also want to give the president some benefit of doubt, because he said he's still working out the maths in terms of how that would be. Perhaps those who make that pronouncement did that based on the existing plan, you know, to give 8,000 to 12 million households over a 6-month period. That is not, it doesn't make any sense. I saw that happen in the last administration that was headed by the office of the vice president, you know, doing all of that. We could not measure the impact of that money, you know, in the lives of the people. Even the register we're talking about, how did they come about that? There are so many things stated about it. But however, I need to also go back and respond to what the other guests on the other side is saying. In terms of what happened, or in terms of the shock, something is very common to us as Africans, or perhaps as Nigerians. We always respond to issues, you know, when they happen. A whole lot of all of them, all of the contestants, President Bola Tinubu, Vice President Atiku Abubakar, and as well as Mr. Peter Obi, all said they are going to remove subsidy.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether it's going to be June or not, but a lot of us do not plan. And I tell you this for free, because the moment the man became president-elect, there's been a lot of conversations going on and on in terms of that subsidy removal. And at some point, the past president mentioned that the incoming president has endorsed the entire process. So all of that, the only problem I see here is that they don't carry people along. But President Bola Tinubu make a pronouncement on the 29th. Some of us prepared in terms of, well, we know this is going to come, and we are waiting for the shock. However, the pronouncement has been made. It has become a policy. It has come to stay. The question again is to work out the processes in a way that everybody within the system can benefit from the palliative. And that was why I explained all of those people within that sector that needed to be addressed, from the workforce to those who are trading, to students, to people who are too. Everybody should benefit from it. The issue of $10 per month for one household is unnecessary. It's not something that can achieve anything. It's a waste of time. So they need to sit back, because I heard the president also say he's working out the mathematics, the math, on how that money will be disbursed in a way that it can, in a way, you know, create some impact in the life of the people. The governors will have to be involved in this. Some state governments, in terms like Aborowa State, and a few other governors are already supporting the people by providing buses, you know, to alleviate that, you know, shock that people are going through. But like I said, if I am in the president cabinet to advise him today, I will ensure that whatever we are doing cut across every sector of the economy, from the NLC, people who are working, the market women, the students, they will all be incentivized and ensure they have something to go home with. But the $10 per month per household is totally not something workable. I don't think the president should go that route. That's just my simple advice.
Thank you, Olusiji. Now, Adeola, we work in a low-trust environment. There's a huge trust deficit between the governed and the government in Nigeria. Now, assessing the credibility and effectiveness of the National Social Safety Net Program, I believe Olusiji talked on this when he made his submission. What specific improvements or adjustments should be made to ensure it positively impacts the well-being of the beneficiaries?
Yeah, I will start with this. We have, as of today, we have 720,000 public workforce in federal government. That is, those who are working in the federal government employ, 720,000 in number. And in totality in Nigeria, we have about 2.2 million. That can be corrected. But as of today, That is the information that we have. I have some of my friends and even an organization that I know who are actually in charge of this palliative, that is this cash transfer. They told me that it is real and that they actually get to do this. So I believe they get to do them. But what I'm actually saying is that, and indeed, I also want to say, from the letter of the president to the House of Rep, it was stated therein that this time around, instead of the cash that was being given to people one by one, because that the last administration was cash being given to people. But this time around, they said, like those the last administration too said, that they will do cash transfer through digital means. I do not know whether the woman in Sokoto who has not seen a bank, or the man in Borno who's the totality of the state has about 2 or 4 banks. I don't know how they're going to get their own money. But I believe from my own antecedents.
We talk about financial inclusion, and I'm going to use a personal example. I was in Kano State 2 years ago with the World Food Program, and they did a conditional during the COVID-19 pandemic, and they had this conditional cash transfer to the most economically vulnerable people, and they didn't give cash. It was done to cards. So I guess it also helps sort of getting more people into that financial inclusion net. But because of want of time, I'm afraid this is where we'll have to drop the anchor on today's program. I'd like to say thank you to you, Olusiji Aina, development economist who joined us from Abuja, and also Adeola Ogunbodede, an economist in Lagos. I do appreciate your time and contribution to the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now it's time for me to give you something to chew on after this timeout. What can 8,000 naira buy in today's Nigeria? That's 48,000 in a year. How much is a bag of rice again? That's more than a third of Nigeria's minimum wage, and families expected to thrive on this for a month. Tokenism will not help Nigeria grow. We can't keep shaving over issues and papering over cracks when our injuries deepen and rot. The Nigerian government has better decisions to make, not this. I am Gbenga, Aborowa. Many thanks for being a nice company. See you next time at Politics HQ. Bye-bye.